Imagine you go and hang out with your best friends and everything seems normal as it always has been. Then, all of a sudden they stab you in the back. Literally. This is the nefarious tale of Skylar Neese. Hello friend, and welcome back to High Time Crime. My name's Joel, and on here I specialize in true crime and professional skateboarding. My best trick? A kickflip. But today we're looking at the case of Skylar Neese, a high schooler who was betrayed by her supposed best friends. Our story takes place in Star City, West Virginia. With a population of about 2,000 people, it's not the biggest town, and about 15% of the population there are below the poverty line. It's very close to Morgantown and part of Monongalia County, and if you're in the area, you're most likely there to go to West Virginia University, or maybe you're going to the farmer's market. Just depends on you. But Skylar Annette Neese was born on February 10th of 1996 to Mary and Dave Neese. She was an only child and oftentimes described as an intelligent, compassionate, stubborn, and bubbly young girl. She had very good grades and consistently had a 4.0 GPA. Growing up, Skylar lived in Stone Path townhouses and went to Cheat Lake Elementary School, and when she was in the second grade, she would meet her best friend Sheila Eddy at a community center. Sheila was born on September 29th of 1995 to Tara and Greg Eddy. She was considered to be very promiscuous and not a good influence. Skylar and Sheila didn't go to the same school because Sheila lived in Blackville, which is about 20 miles west of Morgantown. Regardless of this, the two became practically inseparable. Sheila's parents would later divorce, and her mom would end up marrying a man named James Clemendon. James apparently had a decent amount of money, and so Sheila and her mom started living a bit more of a luxurious lifestyle. James would also move them out to Morgantown, and this was perfect because Skylar and Sheila would finally be able to be close. Freshman year of high school was when they were finally paired together at University High in 2010. Shortly after their freshman year, Skylar's family ended up moving from the Stone Path townhouses to Star City, but she still went to the same school. University High was also where Skylar and Sheila would end up meeting Rachel Schoaf. Rachel was born on June 10th of 1996 to her parents Rusty and Patricia Schoaf. Like both Skylar and Sheila, Rachel too was an only child, and she was considered to be a gifted and aspiring actress and singer. Her and her family were very religious and attended the St. Francis Catholic School. The three girls started to hang out all the time, doing things like smoking, drinking, and breaking the rules. But Sheila and Rachel's friendship started to become closer while Skylar was slowly being left behind.
You know what? I need to tell you a secret. I just forgot.
You have a secret from me?
Well, I mean, I haven't told anyone.
Not even Skylar?
No.
Okay.
I didn't even tell Skylar that I get high. That's one of my secrets too. Like, I didn't tell her that. But anyways, well, I told my mom.
On July 5th of 2012, everything would change for the absolute worst. Skylar had came home at about 10 p.m. from her part-time job at Wendy's. She went and kissed her parents goodnight and then went to her own bedroom to go to bed. The next day on July 6th, Skylar's parents would wake up just like normal, and they assumed Skylar was still in her bed. They both left for work, but her father Dave would return home sometime during the midday so Skylar could use his car to go to work. Once he got home, he started calling out to Skylar to see if she was awake, but he didn't hear anything. So he went to her room and he knocked on the door, and he found out it was locked from the inside, and so he started to look around. He noticed a small bench outside of Skylar's window with the window open, and he immediately knew that she had snuck out the previous night. In a panic, Dave quickly started calling everyone he knew to see if anyone had seen Skylar or was with her. This included Sheila, who said she talked to Skylar on the phone around midnight but hasn't seen her. Skylar's mother Mary would soon come home, and within a few minutes at 4 p.m., Skylar's manager at Wendy's called asking where she was because she was late for her shift. Not knowing what to do and without any knowledge of where Skylar was, her parents would call the police.
Long County 911, do you have an emergency?
I have a 16-year-old daughter who apparently snuck out of her room last night. She has not been home, hasn't went to work, can't get a hold of her from any of her friends. I am scared to death.
Has she done this before?
No.
Sheila soon called Skylar's parents back to let them know that she lied and actually was with Skylar the night before. She said her and Rachel picked Skylar up at around 11 p.m. to go joyriding around Morgantown, but they returned before midnight and dropped her off at the end of her street in her silver Toyota Camry. Sheila and her mother Tara would end up going to the Neese's home to assist in looking for Skylar. Both families started going door to door asking if anyone had seen Skylar, and this was all to no avail. Mary then remembered that their building recently surprisingly had security cameras installed, and so they went to their landlord as fast as they could. Skylar was seen getting into a car at 12:31 a.m., and the car was parked on Fairfield Street, which is right next to the Neese's apartment. Nobody could recognize the obviously silver vehicle, which for some reason they identified as an SUV and considered it to be an unknown vehicle. It's clearly silver and clearly a car. Why was 2 and 2 not put together? But at this point, nobody suspected Sheila, and when the police were shown the video, their interpretation was that Skylar ran away with someone and was likely to come back. Because the investigators thought this, they didn't issue an Amber Alert, which could have potentially helped. Skylar's parents knew she would never do anything like that, and they wanted to believe that was the case, but they felt something more nefarious going on. Missing posters were put up, and for months, investigators and Skylar's family and friends kept looking for her without any luck. But on December 12th, about 6 months after Skylar disappeared, her other best friend Rachel Schoaf had a mental breakdown, and so her mother called the police.
I have an issue with a 16-year-old daughter of mine. I can't control her anymore. She's screaming. She's running through the neighborhood. Give me the phone. No, this is over. This is over. Hurry up. Get away from her. No, God. She just gave me a block. Oh, God. Hurry up, please.
Soon the police would show up, and Rachel was taken away and put into a psychiatric hospital named Chestnut Ridge, located in Morgantown. Within a few days, she would be released, and her mother would immediately go to the police because Rachel had information about Skylar. The investigators would then interview Rachel and figure out everything that happened that night. Skylar had gotten home from Wendy's around 10 p.m. and then kissed her parents goodnight and went to bed. The night before, on July 4th, Skylar had tweeted out some things which give us a pretty good look at what was going on. It starts off with, "It really doesn't take much to piss me off." And then the next tweet, about 4 hours later, reads, "Sick of being at f***ing home. Thanks, friends. Love hanging out with you all too." Then a very eerie tweet about 3 hours later, which reads, "Stress will be the death of me." The next day, on July 5th, the day Skylar was last seen, she posted one last tweet at 10:48 p.m. and it reads, "You doing like that is why I will never completely trust you." We can only assume that these tweets were about Sheila specifically, but once again, these are only assumptions. Shortly after Skylar got home, she got flooded with text messages from Sheila and Rachel. The two of them were asking Skylar if she wanted to come hang out and smoke. Skylar was very hesitant at first and didn't want to do it because she was upset with them, but figured it might be a way to try and rekindle their friendship. At around 12:31 p.m., Skylar was picked up by Sheila and Rachel in Sheila's silver Toyota Camry, and the two were both wearing hoodies with large kitchen knives inside the pockets. In the trunk of the car was a shovel, 2 fresh pairs of clothes, towels, and bleach. Sheila then drove about 45 minutes away to Pennsylvania to a 1-lane back road called Morris Run Road, which the 3 girls were very familiar with due to Sheila's father living very close by. About a mile into the road, Sheila then parked the car on the side. The girls got out and walked a little ways and then started talking a bit. Sheila rolled up and they got ready to smoke, but they realized that they left the lighter in the car. This was done on purpose. Sheila asked if Skylar could get the lighter because she was the closest one to the car, and so she said okay and started walking to get it. While Skylar had her back turned to Sheila and Rachel, the 2 girls then counted to 3 and ran after Skylar and started stabbing her. Skylar tried to run away, but was tackled by Rachel, who was about 4 to 5 inches taller and much stronger. Skylar was fighting for her life and managed to actually grab the knife Rachel was using and ended up slicing Rachel's ankle. She put up a hell of a fight, but was sadly overpowered by Sheila and Rachel, and they stood over her and watched as she died. In Skylar's final moments, the only word that she could get out was, "Why?" Sheila and Rachel then tried to bury Skylar, but the ground ended up being too hard to dig. So they decided to move her body next to a big tree and cover her with a bunch of rocks and branches. Then they washed all the blood off in Morris Run Creek and disposed of their bloody clothing and knives. Within a few hours, Sheila and Rachel were back home like nothing happened. After Rachel's mental breakdown, she told investigators what really happened, and they were absolutely shocked. Rachel agreed to take them to Skylar's body, but when she did, the entire area was covered in snow, and so she couldn't exactly pinpoint where it was, and so they had to wait for the snow to melt. So now investigators at least knew what happened to Skylar, but they didn't have any concrete evidence or a body to go off of. They knew that Sheila would be eager to try and see Rachel, and so the investigators put electronic surveillance in Rachel's room to try and get something out of Sheila. Soon she went over to Rachel's house on January 3rd of 2013, so nearly 7 months after Skylar's disappearance, and something must have happened because they pretty much stopped talking after this. About 2 weeks later, on January 16th, investigators returned to the spot Rachel had taken them to with the K9 unit, and the snow was almost completely melted. One of the dog's handlers was picking up a GPS tracker that fell off the dog when he spotted skeletal remains under a pile of branches. For the next few months, Rachel and Sheila were allowed to roam free while the investigators were gathering evidence to use against them. They established cell phone records that placed the three of them together that night in the same location. Sheila's house randomly got raided, and they seized every knife that the family owned, and so Sheila started to get very worried. Sheila and Rachel were both homeschooled for the rest of the year and kept tweeting as if nothing happened. On March 13th, it was announced that the identity of the body found was that of Skylar Neese. Nothing about Skylar's death was revealed yet, but Sheila still had the audacity to tweet this. "Rest easy, Skylar. You'll always be my best friend. I miss you more than you could ever know." What a lying sack of shit. But on May 1st of that year, Rachel surrendered herself to the authorities and had her first day in court. She agreed to testify against Sheila in any trial and would be given a second-degree murder charge that would last 20 to 30 years. Sheila, however, was eating at Cracker Barrel with her mom when her mom got a phone call from one of the investigators. He asked if she could bring Sheila down to be questioned again, and her mom said that they were out eating at Cracker Barrel. So the investigators drove there and in the parking lot stopped them from leaving and then arrested Sheila for murder. On January 28th of 2014, Sheila Eddy pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison with mercy. This is where she's eligible for parole in 15 years because she was a minor at the time. She expressed no remorse during this, and it was clear that she was a psychopath with no emotional connection to the outside world. About a month later, on February 25th of 2014, Rachel Schoaf was sentenced to 30 years in prison with eligibility for parole after 10 years. With flawless behavior, she would be released in 10 years or 2024. So why did this happen? The reason that Sheila and Rachel apparently took Skylar's life was because they just didn't like her anymore. They were worried that Skylar would expose their secrets of them having a relationship further than just being friends, and to be completely honest with you, once again, Sheila's just a psychopath. Skylar and Sheila got into a huge argument in early June of 2012 when they were away on vacation, and when Sheila got back, she had murder on her mind, and she wasn't going to stop until she did it, though it's believed that this may have been a plan for many months. It's pretty apparent who the aggressor was in this situation, and somehow she managed to get Rachel on board to think that this was a good idea. This doesn't give Rachel any credit or anything because she's just as guilty and just as terrible as Sheila. She had more than enough time and opportunity to not go through with it, but she did, and so she deserves, I believe, much more time. An eye for an eye, a life for a life. Sheila even had the nerve to tweet out this: "We really did go on 3, referring back to the moments before they stabbed Skylar to death. Sheila Eddy is a horrible person, and I hope she never gets out of prison. Rachel Schoaf will be out someday, and I once again wish they would have given her a life sentence." She even tackled Skylar as she was trying to run away. There was no justification there. Skylar Annette Neese was a sweet young girl who was charismatic and had her entire life ahead of her. She was planning on studying criminal law in college, and she really excelled in school. Sadly, she was manipulated by people who she thought were her best friends, and they did the absolute worst thing they could have done to her for no reason at all. I hope she's resting peacefully and her family is able to find some closure. Also, apparently Rachel Schoaf got married in prison in 2019. What the hell? Why? Who? On March 27th of 2013, the West Virginia House of Delegates approved Skylar's law with a 98-0 vote. Basically, an Amber Alert was not issued in Skylar's disappearance because the circumstances did not meet all of the criteria for the alert to be issued. So this changed the law from having any criteria to when a child goes missing, they immediately activate the Amber Alert. But anyways, thank you for watching this episode of High Time Crime. If true crime is your thing, then please subscribe and hit the like button because that's all we do. I also have a second account with my brother named Horrifying where we tell stories about everything paranormal. This includes true crime, mysteries, and things that are just downright spooky. I'd greatly appreciate if you subscribe to that too. The link's in my bio. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care, friend.